A ghostly procession emerged from a mountain gorge. Takeda's soldiers covered in mud and blood, their red armor faded. Kasuga Toratsuna saw his lord and exhausted Takeda Katsuyori. Bowing deeply, Toratsuna commanded in a firm, non-negotiable voice. Men, check your arms, replace everything. No one must witness this disastrous retreat. This was a consideration from Kosaka Danjo, the sole survivor of Takeda's 4 heavenly kings from Nagashino. Slightly earlier. May 21, 1575, Shitaragahara. Gunfire echoed as Takeda's red-armored soldiers scattered like leaves. Lord Yamagata Sabrobio is dead. Lord Babami no Nokami is dead. The names of veteran retainers from Shingen's era were cried out in desperation.
Ohiki kudasare! Oyakata-sama!
His aides' cries faded. Katsuyori was frozen, unable to speak. Over 10,000 veterans were lost instantly, crippling Takeda's might. The fleeing Katsuyori was denied entry at Tamin Castle. In the pouring rain, Katsuyori's party wandered north on muddy roads. Even then, Katsuyori wrote letters for post-battle arrangements. At Nagashino, only a few vanguard units fell. Losses were minor. His letters to provincial lords were a painful bluff. Upon Katsuyori's return to Kofu, Kasuga Toratsuna proposed a harsh comeback plan. Defend Kai, Shinano, and Kozuke, Seide Suruga and Totomi to the Hojo for peace, and Po Oink. After a pause, Toratsuna's words sharpened. For the Nagashino defeat, someone must be blamed. Order Lord Anayama Nobukimi, the clan branch head, to commit seppuku. At Nagashino, Anayama's forces reportedly achieved little and retreated quickly as defeat loomed. He also reportedly rode to Katsuyori's camp and berated him. You let Shingen's veteran retainers die. However, its source, the Koyo Gunkan, is dramatized, so the story's truth is uncertain. Abandoning territory, purging a clan head. Both were unrealistic and overly harsh measures for the time. True or not, Katsuyori avoided such heartless acts. Instead, Anayama Nobukimi became central to Katsuyori's administration. To unite his weakened vassals, he likely had to rely on Nobukimi, the clan branch head. An anguished but realistic choice for the young lord. The comeback began with ridicule. The enemy Tokugawa's Mikawa Monogatari records the following. To replace fallen soldiers, the Takeda army forced young boys and former priests into battle. The prestige of the once famed Takeda cavalry was gone. Yet Katsuyori rebuilt a 13,000-man army in just 4 months. He also repelled the victorious Tokugawa army's attack. He rebuilt his army with astonishing speed, minimizing territorial loss. Even the enemy record, Todaiki, praised his inner strength. To sortie so quickly after the Nagashino defeat is admirable warrior conduct. But the Tokugawa weren't his only enemy. Iwamura Castle in eastern Mino. Their 30,000 elite Oda troops besieged the castle. Takeda took this castle in late 1572 during Shingen's western campaign. It was key to eastern Mino for Takeda. For Oda, it was a direct threat. But Nobunaga's connection to the castle wasn't just strategic. The female lord who surrendered it to Takeda was Nobunaga's aunt, Lady Otsuya, image of a female superior. Later stories claim Nobunaga loved his aunt, but contemporary documents don't support this. Affection aside, her act was an unforgivable betrayal by a relative. She not only surrendered the castle, she married the invader, Akiyama Torishige, an act Oda's prestige could not ignore. After a half-year siege, Iwamura Castle faced starvation and despair. Commander Akiyama Torashige surrendered to spare his soldiers, and Nobunaga promised a pardon. But it was a cold-hearted trap. When Akiyama Torashige and his men went to Gifu Castle to give thanks, they were captured. 5 days later, Torashige and others were crucified upside down by the Nagar River. Learning of the betrayal, the castle's soldiers desperately charged the Oda forces. Their resistance was futile. They were struck down and survivors driven to the second bailey. The Mikawa Monogatari describes their ghastly end as follows. They were tied to parapets and burned to death. Nobunaga's grudge was mercilessly aimed at his aunt who surrendered. The Mikawa Monogatari relates the events. Nobunaga's rage was so great, he killed his aunt himself at Komakiyama in Owari. The Dadaiki also records a gruesome scene. Despite a sharp sword, she did not die easily. Therefore, it was rumored she must be immortal. Though both the Mikawa Monogatari and Tadaiki are valuable sources, the truth of this is uncertain. However, it is a fact that Nobunaga rarely executed female relatives. Lady Otsuya's tragic end may have been part of a terror tactic to warn the Takeda. Regarding Iwamura Castle's tragic fate, there is a key difference with the later tragedy at Takatenjin Castle. Katsuyori didn't abandon Iwamura Castle. He sent limited reinforcements for a night raid and led his main army himself as far as Ina in Shinano. Though the rescue failed, he appeared to fulfill his duty as clan head. Soon, the Takeda's year of despair ended and a glimmer of hope appeared in Kai. April 1576. Takeda Shingen's main funeral was solemnly held. It was a large ceremony to announce Shingen's death, concealed for 3 years. Per his will, his remains were enshrined in an urn in a storeroom at the Tsutsujigasaki Yakata. Shingen's body was reportedly mummified, sitting intact within the urn. Katsuyori, in a scarlet hakama, prostrated himself deeply before his father. "O spirit now, be at peace." But Katsuyori shrewdly used the solemn Oshishi Asian for politics. Before the funeral, Kiso Yoshimasa submitted a written oath to Katsuyori. "For all eternity, I will harbor no rebellious thoughts." This unprecedented oath was signed by 41 of Yoshimasa's retainers. He likely used Shingen's spirit to tighten control over provincial lords like Kiso. While rebuilding domestic affairs, Katsuyori also looked outward. Meanwhile, former shogun Ashikaga Yoshiaki, obsessed with opposing Nobunaga, tried to form a grand anti-Nobunaga alliance. The plan was to reconcile eastern rivals, Takeda, Hojo, Uesugi, and ally them with the western Mori and Honganji. If formed, this alliance would have been a nightmare for Nobunaga, like the Genki era. Upon hearing the news, Katsuyori sent a message to the Mori. "From now, I will march to Tatami in 3 days." And then he did move his army as declared. This was a demonstration. The Takeda are still strong. Thus Katsuyori's actions sent a message to the realm. However, the plan failed due to deep distrust between Uesugi and Hojo. Uesugi Kenshin, as Kanto Kanrei, had long supported the Satake and Satomi clans of northern Kanto against the Hojo. Joining the Hojo now would mean abandoning them. Ultimately, the Grand Anti-Nobunaga alliance failed. If this alliance had succeeded, history might be different. However, Katsuyori's spirit remained unbroken. "If a great ring cannot be forged now," Katsuyori resolved quietly, "then I will link strong chains individually." Katsuyori focused on strengthening individual alliances. With Kenshin, he continued the Koetsu alliance from Shingen's era. The 1577 Battle of Todorogawa is a prime example of this treaty working. For Kenshin, facing Shibata Katsui's large army, the Takeda at his rear was a major concern. But Katsuyori didn't move. He kept the Shinano border quiet, not threatening Echigo from behind. This silence was the best reinforcement, letting Kenshin focus on his battle with the Oda. In New Year 1567, a palanquin arrived at the Tsutsujigasaki Yakata in Kofu. Hojo Ujimasa of Sagami's younger sister was welcomed as Takeda Katsuyori's official wife, a 14-year-old princess. No one yet knew the harsh fate awaiting her. Thus, Katsuyori cultivated individual alliances with the Uesugi and Hojo, crafting a realistic strategy to confront Nobunaga. However, he risked being caught in the middle between the Uesugi and Hojo. Just then, in March 1578, shocking news came from Echigo. Uesugi Kenshin was dead. The hero's death caused ripples. 2 months after Kenshin's death, Echigo erupted in internal conflict. A Sushi Shieshin dispute between Kagekatsu and Kagetora, the Otate rebellion, erupted. Immediately, a messenger from his ally, Hojo Ujimasa, rushed to Kofu. "Lend your strength to my brother, Kagetora." Indeed, Uesugi Kagetora was Hojo Ujimasa's biological brother. Once a hostage from Hojo to Echigo, Kenshin recognized his talent and named him Kagetora. To his ally's plea, Katsuyori powerfully agreed. Or so it seemed. From here, it's a mystery. Katsuyori should have advanced troops to Echigo to support Kagetora. Instead, he made peace with the opposing Uesugi Kagekatsu and returned his troops to Kai. This mysterious act led to later speculation. Katsuyori was blinded by Kagekatsu's gold. Primary sources confirm that Kagekatsu did present gold. However, this doesn't mean it was a bribe. In Sengoku etiquette, it was common for the party requesting peace to pay gift money. So what were Katsuyori's real intentions? A prominent theory is that it was a tightrope walk to balance the Uesugi and the Hojo. If Kagetora won, the Hojo would become too powerful. So Katsuyori thought, as mediator, I will bring peace between Kagekatsu and Kagetora. The vision was a four-party alliance of Takeda, Hojo, and the two Uesugi houses. This followed Shingen's precedent of forging the Kaiso-Sun Triple Alliance by mediating between Imagawa and Hojo. Perhaps Katsuyori tried to imitate his father. Unlike Shingen, Katsuyori intervened in a family succession issue, which is hard to compromise. Shingen mediated a land dispute, Katsuyori a succession dispute. Unlike Territory, a succession dispute only ends when one bloodline is extinguished. Ultimately, Kagekatsu destroyed Kagetora, ending the Otate rebellion. Katsuyori's mediation resulted in him abandoning the Hojo's younger brother. Moreover, from the chaos, Katsuyori gained a great fisherman's profit. Through peace with Kagekatsu, Takeda power expanded, reaching the Sea of Japan. To the Hojo, Katsuyori's actions were a clear betrayal. Furthermore, Sanada Masayuki fueled Hojo Ujimasa's distrust. During the Otate rebellion, Masayuki used stratagems against Eastern Kozuki's lords. This was because many lords in Eastern Kozuke originally sided with Kagetora. For the Hojo, who expected the territory if Kagetora won, this was encroachment on their land. Initially, Katsuyori halted operations in Eastern Kozuke to prioritize the Hojo alliance. But when the alliance's collapse seemed inevitable, his persistence returned. Masayuki avoided a frontal assault on the strong Numata castle. His battlefield was the human heart. Secret messengers used gold and promises to sway loyalties. He isolated Numata by turning nearby castles, then closed in on the main keep. He wrote a blood-sealed oath to the Numata Castellan, an acquaintance, informing him quietly. Time is now. We act tomorrow night. Delay, and you too are in danger. Masayuki shouts, let the gamble begin. Thus, in autumn 1580, Numata Castle surrendered. Katsuyori thus pacified Kozuke, creating the largest territory in Takeda history, surpassing his father's. The Tsutsujigasaki Yakata erupted in celebration of the victory by the peerless strategist. But late at night, after the banquet, Katsuyori sat alone in the main hall. His official wife, Lady Hojo, entered quietly. Sitting beside Katsuyori, she asked faintly, "This province, you will protect it for us?" Katsuyori, as if ashishi-epting her anguish, nodded quietly. "I will." But the moonlight enveloping the two was terribly cold. The Takeda-Hojo alliance was broken. Hojo Ujimasa had joined the Oda and Tokugawa. Katsuyori's anti-Nobunaga network had become an anti-Katsuyori network. Then came the new year of 1581, the freezing Tsutsujigasaki Yakata in Kofu. Into the tense hall, a sharp remonstrance echoed. "No, my lord. If we move west, the Hojo will attack from the rear, and Kai will burn." The same room that just months ago had seen cheerful celebration. Now, a voice full of fear and impatience echoed off the walls. After a 3-year siege, Takatenjin Castle was about to fall. Indeed, the Takeda had overwhelmed the Hojo and Kozuki. But in Suruga and Totomi, a Tokugawa Hojo pincer attack took their castles one by one. The remonstrance continued. Above all, reinforcing Takatenjin will permanently close the path to peace with Oda. Peace. At that word, Katsuyori bit his lip. Katsuyori and Nobunaga were not the mortal enemies often portrayed. In fact, in 1580, Katsuyori had attempted peace with Nobunaga. On that occasion, he returned Nobunaga's son and hostage, Oda Nobufusa. Katsuyori saw this as his trump card, but Nobunaga's reply was rude. "I plan to send for him, but your offering him up shows good sense." It showed blatant contempt, not viewing the Takeda as equals. Still, Katsuyori hoped peace would relieve Takatenjin. Soon, a rumor of imminent peace spread through Kai. But as a result, Katsuyori faced a strange dilemma. He was negotiating peace to save Takatenjin, but couldn't send troops to preserve the peace negotiations. Too late, Katsuyori realized this was precisely Nobunaga's elaborate trap. Around the same time, Takatenjin Castle became a hell. Ieyasu's 6 forts of Takatenjin formed an iron wall, with guards every ken about 1.mimpi. For that reason, it was said, not even a bird could pass. Makawa monogatari yamsi. The commander of Takatenjin was Okabe Motonobu, Suruga's bravest general, known for retrieving Imagawa Yoshimoto's head at the Battle of Okehazama. After Imagawa's fall, Katsuyori gave him exceptional treatment and command of the vital Takatenjin. But even Motonobu had reached his limit. The soldiers starved, ate dirt, and fell. Facing this, Motonobu shot an arrow with a message. "I will surrender Takatenjin and 3 other castles. I only ask you spare the soldiers' lives." These 3 castles were all the remaining Takeda strongholds in Tatami. In other words, this was an exceptional offer, effectively surrendering all of Tatami. Ieyasu received this and sought a decision from Nobunaga. Nobunaga's reply at first seemed to respect Tokugawa's position. "The siege hardship is yours, Lord Tokugawa. I shouldn't interfere, but what followed were his true, heartless intentions. With the Hojo at his rear, Katsuyori cannot move. If we take Takatenjin now, the news that Katsuyori abandoned his own castle will spread throughout the land. Now, that is my thought, but the Tokugawa house must decide." Ultimately, Ieyasu understood Nobunaga's intentions. Thus, Takatenjin Castle was left to its fate by all 3 parties. Nobunaga, who forebode surrender to ruin Katsuyori's reputation. Ieyasu, who understood and chose cold-hearted subordination. And Katsuyori, trapped by the illusion of peace, ultimately didn't move. Takatenjin soldiers were sacrificed to the political machinations of these 3 men. Okabe Motonobu, seeing no hope, appeared before the 730 surviving soldiers. All were skeletal from hunger and thirst. Yet in their eyes, samurai pride flickered like a pale flame. With a parched throat, Motonobu squeezed out a clear voice. "I resolved to die here. Now is the time to lead the charge, repay our debt to Lord Shingen and Lord Katsuyori, and fulfill our desire." At his words, the flame in the soldier's eyes flared as one. Night, March 22nd, 1581. The moon and stars were gone, swallowed by darkness. Takatenjin Castle's gates creaked open in the silence. Okabe Motonobu led a horde of death-bound soldiers. It was more a groan from hell than a battle cry. The soldiers split into 2 groups. One group went to the main gate. Defenses there were supposedly thin. But a Tokugawa trap awaited them. A giant moat dug by the Tokugawa army gaped in the darkness. The front soldiers fell in, followed by the rest, swallowed into the darkness. Amid the chaos, arrows and gunfire rained from 3 directions. At dawn, the moat was overflowing with corpses. The other group, Motonobu's main force, headed for the rear gate. They made a death charge at the camp of Okubo Tadayo. Okubo Hikozaemon Tadataka, the future shogun's Frank advisor, met the charge with his 19 elite men. Sparks flew from blades as roars and death cries filled the darkness. In the melee, Tadataka attacked and wounded a fierce enemy commander. But his opponent was also a seasoned warrior. In return, Tadataka was also struck by a sword, and fresh blood spurted. Instantly, his retainer, Honda Mondo, grappled the commander to save his lord. 2 bloody, muddy shadows tumbled down the slope. And finally, Mondo took his head. At dawn's head inspection, the head Honda Mondo took was revealed to be that of Okabe Motonobu himself. Tadataka wrote as follows in his book, The Mikawa Monogatari. Had he announced his name, a worthy foe, I myself would have taken his head. The Tokugawa side reportedly inspected 688 heads. The Tokugawa army then conducted a mountain hunt, wiping out the surviving Takeda soldiers. Inside the fallen castle, corpses of those who had starved to death, unable to fight, were reportedly scattered everywhere. Reportedly, many were already reduced to charred bones. Heidri Castle, Suruga Province. At night, a candle flame in a room illuminated the anguished face of Castellan Anayama Baisetsu. Into the room, a secret messenger from Tokugawa Ieyasu appeared like a shadow. Lord Peizetsu, your decision. Peisetsu closed his eyes and then slowly nodded. Meanwhile, in Shinano's Kiso Valley. Backed by snowy mountains, Kiso Yoshimasa too had made a decision. The Takeda, who abandoned Takatenjin, cannot defend Kiso. With frozen fingers, Yoshimasa took up his brush. Next, Fall of the Takeda Clan, Part 2, Battle of Tano. The story of those who kept their Takeda pride to the end.